My name is Anke Schrader, and I'm the Greater China Director for the Economist Intelligence Corporate Network. And we're going to spend these last minutes before we break for lunch to talk about collaboration for sustainability. Just a quick reminder to keep using the swap cards if you want to schedule one-on-one meetings. There is a really neat tool to do that. And without further delay, I'm really delighted to welcome on stage our guest speaker for the next 15 minutes, Thongchai Thanachanan from ThaiBev. She is Executive Vice President and Chief of Sustainability and Strategy.
Yep.
So welcome, Thongchai. You sit here.
Thank you.
So I was really heartened to see earlier in the conversation with the CSOs that we were not only discussing environmental issues,
Right.
but also shifted focus to the social aspects of sustainability. Obviously, whenever we are at sustainability conferences, there's this tendency to really have a very strong focus on the environment, specifically on the climate agenda, but there's obviously a lot more to sustainability. You know, there are the people, the communities, the long-term commitment that you're making in regards to employment. And so all of that helps to build business resilience. So Thongchai, let me start out the conversation with just from where you're sitting with your business and in this industry that you're in. How would you go about redefining sustainability to really emphasize the importance of social factors alongside, obviously, environmental factors?
Right. I think, first of all, we have to recognize that environmental sustainability is not only about carbon, right? It's not only about climate change. Climate change is very important, but water, waste, pollution, there are so many other topics, right, and issues about environmental. And then when you actually zoom out from environmental, the social aspects, right, and the everyday life is actually intertwined with all the environmental issues, right? So we can't actually treat environmental issue in isolation. For example, if we talk about Thailand, right, there are actually 4 million rice farmers here who are actually growing rice in the way that emits methane, right? How do we actually change their behavior, change their techniques, right? Eventually it comes back to environment, but in fact, it's not only about really teaching them new techniques, right? It's really about how do you communicate with them, change their way of life, right? So I think that's the social part that we need to recognize, that if we want to get somewhere in our sustainability quest, we actually need to address the social aspects. Farmer is one, education is another big one, right? I think being a consumer goods company, we recognize the power of the consumers. I think all of us here are wearing the professional hat when we attend the conference, right? But in fact, what do you do as a consumer? What do you choose? What do you eat? How do you treat your waste? Everything actually comes back to consumers. And that's why when we talk about collaboration, we don't only collaborate with our business partners, we do, but we also look to collaborate with the consumers, get them to understand and value the sustainability aspect of all the products.
Excellent. Let's stay with that a little bit. So maybe we can dive into that and perhaps you can share some specific examples or initiatives in the context of ThaiBev,
Right.
where you're implementing initiatives to foster that kind of collaboration. It could be with communities, it could be with the suppliers, it could be on the consumer side, like you just said.
Right. Yep.
Perhaps some concrete.
How much time do you have?
Pick in your mind the ones that just pop into your head, maybe two or three.
Right. I think maybe I give you 4 types of examples of what we do, right? So the first one is really, I think, a typical thing where we work with the suppliers, right? So what do we do with our suppliers? We actually teach them carbon accounting, right? Working with them to actually reduce their emissions. So that's
which was a topic discussed just now, right?
Exactly.
How do you get the smaller companies into the boat without
the
making
technology, the understanding. So that's the first bucket, working with our suppliers. The second one is probably unique to us, is actually working with post-consumption players, right? So in Thailand, we have what we call scavenger, the saleng, who actually collect back all the, the PET bottles, the glass bottles and all that. We actually even have loyalty program for them, right? To actually collect the packaging waste, back to our recycling facility. So that's another, bucket of how do we work with different people along the supply chain. The third one is actually about working with the community to help achieve our sustainability goals. So we have, beyond the net zero, we have water replenishment goals because we use a lot of water being a beverage company, right? So we work with the community up north, where they're actually in the mountain where it's actually the water sources, the river, up north. How do you actually protect the water sources? How do you actually grow trees so that you can get, conserve water better? So the third bucket is really about achieving our goals with the community work. And then the fourth one that is much more about public, right? Really nudging the behavior of the public in the right way. For example, we even have a TV program that actually get the competition across from social entrepreneurs. So similarly to like Shark Tank, but actually focusing on social entrepreneurs. So that's one way to really tell the public that you can actually make changes happen, right? Also, we have Expo, Sustainability Expo, that actually draws probably 300,000 people, right, on site, right, really trying to talk to consumers and youth, right, to say, how do you actually help, as an individual, right? First of all, you need to get them to understand what it is, right? Net zero, water replenishment, water conservation, and all that. But then get them to have a chance to act. We have Kid Zone in that, in that expo. We have marketplace. So really a lot of things to make it relevant to consumers, right? So, I can go on all day. Yeah.
Well, especially that last part, I find really intriguing, and I mean it's obviously on a very substantial scale with a lot of investment and thought going into it. And I wonder, obviously, as a family businesses tend to be run very differently from many other business types in general, not only as it relates to sustainability, but from an operational point of view as well, right?
Right.
But if you think about the initiatives that you have in place and that you're investing in, to what extent do you think that comes from being a family business to being run in a certain way with sort of specific kind of values or long-term thinking in mind?
Right. I think one really interesting statistics is that in Thailand, the Thai listed companies, there are 26 of them, if I remember correctly, that actually is in Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Out of the 26, actually more than half are actually family rooted. So they are a big company now, they're a listed company, but they actually have still the strong influence of the owner company, right? The owners still own substantial part of the business. And I think that, that is one kind of evidence to show that when you have a family-rooted company, they actually think about the business much more than the profit of the year, right? I think that the one thing that makes it very different is the horizon, as you said, right? Family thinks about passing it on to the next generation, right? So when you pass on the business from the founder to the second generation, that's usually about 30 years or so, right? So it's much longer than a CEO that comes in for 3 or 5 years and trying to actually, get the program going. So I think that plays a big part. Sustainability is really a long-term issue, right? So having a family-owned or family-rooted business actually gels very well with the sustainability concept and challenges we face.
Yeah, I think that came out in the previous panel as well with Ayala.
Exactly.
Similar situation, and I think that friction between needing to make sure near-term profits, are obviously a key consideration. But how do you really plan for that really, really long-term horizon? We're not even talking in terms of business long-term, which might be 5 years. I was just yesterday in a conversation where somebody asked me, what is your definition of long-term, right? Is it 5 years? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? And so
Right.
many of the sustainability initiatives really plan for the very, very long term from a business point of view.
Yeah.
So I feel if there's sort of a family consideration in play, it makes it much easier to plan for the long term.
Right, and I think beyond the long-term horizon, usually family business, the family or the owner family are usually someone with good reputation, good standing in the society, and I think that peer pressure, right, actually plays a part in you want to be a good guy, right? So I think that also kind of help shape the direction of the company to give back to the society. Yeah.
Maybe a final question to sort of shift gears a little bit and not speak about internal collaboration, but more external. Being very rooted, obviously, in Thailand, in Thai culture, what are your thoughts around businesses from outside of Thailand,
Right.
or even countries, being able to learn from the Thai experience, from how businesses here are handling it, and maybe perhaps on the flip side, what can Thailand or Thai businesses learn from
Right.
businesses
Okay.
outside?
Yeah. So those of you who may, have some time, I would really encourage you to go up to Doi Tung in Chiang Rai. Right. The Doi Tung project actually started in 1987. Right. At that time, that area was actually called Golden Triangle. I'm not sure whether you know about that. It's actually the area where we grew opium. It was the largest opium cultivation in the world, right? And that area actually supply opium and heroin to the whole world. And Doi Tung project actually happened because our princess mother at the time actually wanted to stop that, right? But recognizing that people who actually grow the opium actually are very poor, right? So you need to actually address the economic needs first, right? But if you actually address it in the right way, you can solve the economic problem at the same time as the social and environmental problem. So the solution at the time was really to change the opium to coffee, macadamia, and also crafts. And that project has been going on for 40 years now. And if you go to the area, it changed to a forest,
Yeah.
right? It needs 30 years, 40 years to actually make things like this happen, and it needs a long-term commitment. So I think that would be one of my favorite example from Thailand. It's really about working with the individual in the community
Yeah.
to solve their problems.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about imposing a law or a target, on them. So unless you actually make that become one of the same, right? Then the project will fail. So that's Thailand example. I think if you're talking about international example, this may be really talking to our government at the time, at this time. It's really about the usage of PPP. I think there are many countries, that can use public-private,
Yeah.
parti-
Partnerships.
participation, right? To actually make things happen in the large scale, and that address social and environmental at the same time, right? Many projects about waste management that address, the economic, of the community, waste to energy, for example, in China, in India, in Eastern Europe. I think there are many of those projects that I think Thailand can really learn from. A lot of times you need the land usage right? The garbage collection service of the government to actually make things like this happen. So even though family business are very committed, I think the ingredients probably need many parties to actually collaborate together.
Thank you, Thongthai. Let's see I think we have perhaps time for one question. If there's a question before we wrap up for lunch. Okay, can we have a runner bring a mic over here? Thank you.
สวัสดีครับ
Adhika.
Okay, my question is that, so actually you mentioned about that, the business, you work in the family business, right? So the mindset of the owner is already there, to make a sustainable business. Imagine that you are working in a, like public company that are not the family owned. What would be your recommendation for, to drive the sustainability? Because I think the dynamic will be different.
Right. I think for us, the way we look at sustainability, in fact, my department is called Sustainability and Strategy, right? So the way we look at sustainability is that it's part and parcel of the same coin, right? It's the sustainability of the business which needs to operate in the society and the environment that thrives, right? So unless we actually contribute to the sustainability of our society and environment, our business will not last. And so when we think about sustainability in our company, is sustainability, strategy, and risk management as one kind of one same pie. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Songda. I think we're going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for your time.
Enjoy your lunch.
Yes. Thank you, Thai Bev, for sponsoring the event. It was a pleasure to have you on.